Welcome to another episode of Saturday Night Convos. My name's Ashley, and this is my cousin, confidant, and co-host,
Reagan. And here we like to discuss things that are going on in the world.
And what's going on in our own lives.
Nothing is off the table here. So pull up a chair and join us for another Saturday night conversation. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Convos. I'm Reagan.
And I'm Ashley. Woot woot. Welcome to our second episode of season 2.
Ooh, yeah. We are so excited to be with you for, I know it seems kind of lame to call like season 2, but if we do 10 episodes at a time, it's just like season 2. So, hey.
I don't think it's lame.
We are bringing you guys some amazing content. We feel like some really interesting topics to spur on your thoughts and start some conversations. And this week we are talking about millennials. That's right. Millennials.
We are both millennials, which we get a lot of slack. Like, I feel like millennials alone get a lot of slack. There's a lot of stigma because,
hold up. Slack or flack?
Flack. What's
flack.
The difference?
Okay.
Flack.
Okay.
Okay, we get a lot of flack.
There you go.
We get a lot of flack for slack. Whoa. Because there's a lot of not rumors, but like, I don't know where I was going with that. So what is a millennial?
What is a millennial? Because I was really surprised to learn this.
Okay, so I Googled it, and it from the Canadian Encyclopedia says the millennial generation, also known as Generation Y, refers to a cohort of people born roughly between 1980 and 1996. Though some have a more restrictive definition, most millennials are children of members of the baby boom generation. So they also say millennials are often compared to and defined by the ways in which they are both a product of and a challenge to their parents' generational traits, which I think that's really interesting, right? Because, our parents were 60 years ago, and just in how much societal change and views have, so we're being compared to that.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I'm so excited to get into this because it's something that is always on my mind. But I was really surprised to learn that the years of date go from 1982 to 1996, because when I think of a millennial, I always think of like somebody from the time like between 20 and 30. Once you're 30, you should have the rest of your life figured out. But clearly, that is not
the case.
Yeah. So that really, right off the bat, surprised me.
Yeah. See, we both learned something.
I know.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
So technically, my brother, who's born in 1997, is no millennial. He's Gen X. No. Yeah, he's Gen X.
Wow.
So.
All right. And now, is there a difference between you have two older sisters, so you would all be considered millennials, apparently, according to this definition. So is there a difference between you and your sisters and the way you approach things and your brother, who is a quote unquote different generation by like a year? Do you see those traits?
I think I'm going to Google it, because just in our personalities, yes, I would say we're different, but there's also gender, right?
Yeah.
Like yes or no, yes and no.
Yeah.
I'm going to pose the same question to you, because your siblings are of a different I think a lot of it's to do with the fact that he's a different gender. But he also does do things a little bit differently. He is definitely his own specific character. So what about you? You have siblings that were of a different, they were older.
So I was not supposed to happen. I was like the surprise.
But your parents were so happy.
I know, right? But so my sister is 16 years older than I am, and my brother is
13.
Would have been 14.
Oh.
So 77, 79. So looking back, like there's definitely a difference. I don't know. I feel like they had, this is going to sound really bad, and maybe this is just part and parcel of me being the youngest and just watching them, but they were hard workers. I'm not saying I'm not a hard worker, but I just work in a different way. But they were hard workers. They worked for what they, my sister worked to go to school, right? And they were just of a different generation, and they were raised old school too, right? So there was a difference, I would say. And even like my sister these days, she doesn't understand the things like that I deal with, I feel like. So like my inability to like choose a career, or my anxieties over whatever I may be anxious over that day, I don't think she fully understands that, because it's a generational thing, right? And these days, we as millennials, we have so many options, but yet
I
feel fewer options.
No. I was thinking about this on my way to work. Like, as a, I'm a educated, middle income, white female. I should be able to go out and just get a job, right? Like, so why am I going back to school and taking on more debt? And I was actually in my class a couple of weeks ago. They were like, everybody here is, fortunate to be here. And, because not everybody, it could be able to go back to graduate school. But I'm like, even in that way though, right? Like, there's people here who are taking on.
No, everybody in your program would be taking on what, 20 grand in debt, easy, right?
So I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but it's not easy to make those choices. There's a lot of thought and everything that goes into what am I going to do for the rest of my life. It's not like 50 years ago where you could buy a house and just live there, and food was, you could spend $300 a month on food.
And, keep the same job for 20 years. And, I mean, you could probably do that. It's that other thing of like, am I happy in this, right? Our parents' generation, they just did it because that was expected of them. The millennial generation, I feel like we've been told that we can have the world. The world is our oyster. Make the best of it, right?
I think as a generation, we're striving. I think we're striving for more. And in a way, that's positive. But in a way, we're constantly going more. And I think that is, in a way, leading to the social stigmas and the anxiety. And, in a way, like, striving to be our best selves is always a good thing. But
then again, right?
Yeah. You can't have both sides of the coin all the time.
Yes, and that is something I am learning. You can't, as quoted in one of my favorite movies, you can't have roots and wings, right? Sometimes it has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And for me, you had mentioned, what did you mention? You mentioned, we were talking jobs and careers and, right? And striving for more. I try to do things purposefully. So when I'm thinking about taking on debt for graduate school, I've been thinking through that for years, saying, do I really need to do that? Do I want to do this? Is that something that I really want to take on?
Yeah.
Or, when you're looking at that job, like I look at a job and I see 30 years and I'm like, I don't think I can commit. For my own well-being, I can't commit to this job for 30 years. Right? And it's just like we as millennials, we are, it's very easy to be, laser focused on now, yes, but also like have the ability to have like x-ray vision and see like 30 years, or try to like see 30 years down the line, and what will our lives be if, we take this job, or we go this place, or we go down, right? There's that famous Robert Frost poem,
Two roads diverged by yellow wood. Sorry, I could not travel both, but be one traveler, long I stood, yada, yada, yada. Yeah.
Yes. And I took the road less traveled by. So.
Yeah. It's hard to, right? You're supposed to live in the moment and mindfulness, and it's hard to do that sometimes when you're like, well, what would happen if I did this? Or what if this? And right, I don't practice mindfulness nearly as much as I should, because I have anxiety and I've dealt with depression and but I'm constant. Actually, you know what? I have actually been doing it like today, because I'm like, I need to just take a breath.
Yeah.
But when you're like, what if I don't do this? Like, I feel like that's a lot of what millennials do, because we've watched my father-in-law retired at 55. Like, like baby boomers, they're getting to retire like at a good age, like 65, 55, whatever age they're retiring.
Yeah.
I don't know if our generation's going to be able to do that.
Well, and I think
we.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, so what I was going to say on retirement was, I feel like our generation, we're kind of like, this doesn't go for everyone, but I would say like there is, I don't know if you'd class it as a minority or majority, but there are a specific group of people, or a certain group of people, that look at the idea of retirement and say, well, why don't I just do this now? Why don't I just travel now? Why am I going to wait 30 years, work at a job that I may or may not like, and then go do it, right? Yeah. So why not go now?
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that's a very common thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So,
and anyways. I feel like as millennials, we're more like, we live to work, not work to live. Like, we're very much more in the moment.
Yeah.
And I know that for myself personally, I've watched, like, I grew up in a family where like we traveled a little bit. But my parent, like, their life, my growing up, we revolved around my family's business. And so for myself and like my partner, our importance is around our family unit. And traveling for me is really important, because I want those life experiences for my son.
Yeah.
And you never know when something's gonna happen.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah. And that's a very millennial mindset to have, right? So
I'm okay with it, though.
You know what? I think we have to be, because I mean, you can come to this conclusion very easily just by the things that are going on in this world today, or you can look at your past lived experience, but life is short.
It is.
Tomorrow's not always guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
And I'm sorry for interrupting you. I think saving for retirement like is very important as well. Like I'm both ways, but I'm also just like, I might not live to retirement. And I think that is my mindset that's very different from a baby boomer
yeah.
because like they saved. Like my
Yeah.
grandmother saved everything. She was 89 or sorry, 88 and she saved everything, but she grew up during the depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
oh no, my father hoards everything. Everything. And that comes from his parents who also grew up in the depression, right? Yeah. But it's funny how these generational characteristics just kind of no, I find it so interesting. I find this topic so interesting because of the comparison because obviously my parents were older when they had me, so naturally my dad is almost 70 now. And so these generational ideas of the 60, 70-year-old age group, I tell my dad, oh, I'm going back to school. I'm applying to teachers college. He's like, oh, you have a job. I didn't know that. Why are you doing that? Right. And the idea of correlating happiness with the way that you live your life, whether that be your career or whatever choices you may make, it doesn't always correlate so easily for them, right? Because as we said, they grew up, got married, they grew up, got a job, got married, had a house, had kids, boom, that was their life until they retired, right? And so everything was very mapped out for them, whereas for us, again, the two roads.
I feel like we have more choice.
Yes.
But I also feel like there's more, not expectation, but there's still judgment there. Which
yes, there is. There's absolutely judgment. I would say there are more choices open to us, but there are also a lot more barriers. Take, for example, if you don't have even if you go to university and you get a BA degree, you're not necessarily going to end up in, your dream job right away. And more times than none, you're going to have to go back and get that master's degree or that professional diploma to even have a chance at that job. I Googled difficulties of being a millennial, and it came up. So there's this website. It's like some therapist in like Beverly Hills, California, but they have a specific like part of their site devoted to millennials. And so 7 problems millennials face today was on their website. So do you want to try and guess all 7 of them, Ashley?
Oh.
And then we can go through.
Oh. I don't even know where to start.
We've already touched on some of them.
Okay. Stigma about being lazy.
No.
Okay.
That's
why don't
not
you
even
just
one of them? Okay, so
getting a job?
That is one of them, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so number 1, so these are the 7 problems millennials face today. So number 1 is student debt. So we already talked about that. And this is coming out of the States, and their student debt, even for a BA degree, is
like 100,000. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
I think my undergrad was 20. So do the math there.
Yeah.
2, unemployment / I also put multiple job changes. Yeah. So the website pointed to like millennials just, not necessarily being happy in a job, so they'll quit and then they'll go get another job, or the job that they get laid off from right away, right? And it's that whole thing again, getting out of school, and you've got like 50 people competing for like one specific job, right? I mean, I know so after I got sick, I went back to work and I ended up taking a year off of work. I probably applied to 200 jobs. And every time it was, nope, sorry.
Yeah, it's very competitive.
It's incredibly competitive. And it didn't help that I had that gap. But the point is, right? It's so crazy. Okay, 3. Lower wages. I was kind of surprised by this. But I guess it would make sense if millennials are taking more jobs in like minimum wage jobs, but still, I don't know. I found that one kind of surprising because if you get into like a firm, you would expect to have like a decent wage, right?
You would think.
Yeah. Now, that could also correspond to like benefits and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because, there's more contracts being offered today, and a lot of millennials do contract work.
Mm-hmm.
And companies put that contract work out so that they don't have to pay the benefits.
That is true.
Right?
Which is a big problem in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to like, not saving for retirement and all of this stuff because they can't afford to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Okay, number 5 is housing costs. And this one is on my mind constantly now because A, I'm ready to move out. But B, the housing prices around where I live are like up 3-fold over what they were last year. It's insane. Little semis are going for like $350,000 now when they were going for $195,000 probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's insane.
It makes me sad. I know our housing prices down in Windsor, Essex have raised 18% over a year.
Wow.
And I know for myself, like my partner owns our house and we thought about building like 3 years ago and it was too much then. And now we almost bought last year and that didn't work out because like we put an offer in and then the bank was like, oh yeah, you can't carry both mortgages at the same time. And we were like, thanks for telling us. And okay, so we're not buying that. And now we're like potentially looking into a modular home. So that's like so it's frustrating, right? Because like I have before made a decent like income. Like we're in a good spot financially. It's just one, I'm young. It sucks. Like and I feel for people who I know who are around my age. Like how do you rent?
Yeah.
And pay the rental prices because our rates are similar to London's.
Yeah.
And how do you save?
Anyways, yeah, no, the rent around here is insane. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, yes, I'm ready to move out, but like I can't afford to move out and put food on the table and
yeah,
like I would literally be living in a shoebox. In a shoebox.
Welcome to my shoebox.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's right. Like I've worked in this and it's I don't see it getting any better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the market here is projected to go down 20% in the new year.
Oh, so, that's exciting.
Hopefully. And I think that's for all of Canada.
Oh.
But the point is that housing prices here are astronomically high. Like you've got houses that a few years ago would have sold for like $150,000 now going for upwards of $4,000 or $5,000. It's crazy. It's insane. And I don't know, it just gives a little credence to our generation actually being able to afford homes.
It's nobody's going to be able, like nobody under 30 is going to be able to be a homeowner unless you are a lawyer or a doctor.
Well, and even then, like Well, and see, this is the other thing that I don't know. I've always tried to stay out of debt.
Mm-hmm.
I paid off my student loans. I didn't carry any debt until my car payment. That was the most that I had up until I think last year when I went back to school to do HR. But there's this constant like nagging in my head now at the thought of people my age in our generation are taking on debt like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like if I want to go back to school, if I want to go to teachers college, I'm going to have to take on debt. If I want to buy a house, that's debt.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like this, I don't know. I feel like we were always encouraged not to go into debt, right? We were always encouraged to be fiscally like financially savvy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now as 20 somethings, we're being told, well, if you want to do this, you have to take this amount out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's counterintuitive to me, and it's something I'm coming to terms with because I don't like the idea of owing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree because right, like I carry a car loan.
Yeah.
And lots of fun stuff like that. Like that doesn't bug me as much because like
Yeah.
I'm like as long as I make my payment, it's fine.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bug me. Like I don't love the fact of how long my payment is, but you know, got me a new shiny car. Um it's more of like how much like a house payment is.
Yeah.
And how high it is for what it is. I'm like, it's a house that's on this tiny piece of property that like that's how much money. Like to me, I can't reason with that.
But try comparing that to rent. Right? Because a mortgage payment is usually lower than rent payment. Generally. Yeah, right?
That's true. So, no, that is true.
I mean, like, reason paying $1,600 for a shoebox apartment in like a good part of town. Right?
I just write like a lot of people that's 25 years. And I'm like, that's I can't.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of people do it.
Yep.
So,
and you know what? We will all do it at some point, Lord willing, if we're blessed and lucky enough. But I mean, anyways, okay. So that's number 5, housing costs. So 6, and this is one that I can relate to a lot, is caring for aging parents. So I've said my dad is almost 70, and I've lived with him since, my mom died 10 years ago. And I felt a lot in the past year, like it's on, I wouldn't say it's like on me, but I feel like it's on me to have cared for him, right? To cook and to clean, because those are things that he does not do. And even now to be like his person that he talks to constantly, right? And my
counselor to your list.
Yeah, I know. I'm a doctor, I'm a counselor, I'm everything. I'm a technician of phones and TVs. That doesn't bug me as much, but I definitely feel like I'm caring for my parent. And I mean, yes, I have a sister. She doesn't live at home though, and she doesn't deal with half the stuff. And I feel like sometimes this makes me feel entitled, but at the same time it's true. Like I do feel a burden. And lately I've been feeling burnout from like caring for him. For being that person that he interacts with constantly. And all the stuff, right, that comes with that.
No, it's a lot when you're constantly interacting with.
Yeah.
I get it from a 4-year-old. It's exhausting.
Yeah. It's just it's a lot, and I've had to remind myself that it's not my job to care for him.
Yeah.
Right? I live with him, and yes, I love my father, and yes, I do cook for him because I want to eat. He doesn't cook, and if nobody cooks, well, then we don't eat. But it's just it's been 10 years, and I worry about him too, right? When you lose a parent, it's natural to worry about your other living parent, and that is part of it, but it can be exhausting at times. So I definitely get where that is coming from.
Yeah, and I think you're especially because you live with your dad, you're gonna feel that a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. So number 7, and I found this one really interesting. So last week we covered mental health, and I just have to mention this because this is so relevant, both to what we're talking about tonight, but also to last week's episode, mental health concerns. So Ashley, did you know that 12% of millennials have a diagnosed anxiety disorder, compared to 6% of the baby boomer generation?
I did not. That's really interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And I think that just speaks to, again, what we were talking about earlier, those societal pressures that are, right? Not only societal pressures, but then, it's self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Imposing specific thoughts of where we should be. Why aren't we here? Why aren't we doing that? How can I get from point A to point B, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, that's really interesting. I looked up 5 stereotypes because I don't know about you, but it actually kind of bugs me whenever I hear something being like, this generation, they don't like working. Because it's actually our generation.
Yeah.
And
well, and I mean, you think about it, like the millennial generation, we've done a lot. We've accomplished a lot. Like, if we're talking 82 to 96, well, Mark Zuckerberg made Facebook, Twitter, there's Instagram, right? Cell phones. The seniors wouldn't have their cell phones if millennials hadn't thought of it.
What would your dad do?
Oh my God. I asked him last week if he wanted a flip phone. I got a resounding no.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the first one. Millennials set the bar too high because of a sense of entitlement. What is your thoughts on that?
Millennials set the bar too high because of, what was it, entitlement?
Yeah, because of a sense of entitlement.
I would say there is a sense of entitlement in millennials, especially when it comes to education. I can see that. But I would also argue that the bar is set high because society expects it to be set high, right?
Yeah, yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel for myself personally, I don't believe I set the bar. I believe I set my own bar. I set myself a high bar. So maybe yeah. So I guess yeah.
Yeah.
I expect myself to do well, and then if it falls, I'm just like, well, bad Ashley. This one bugs me.
Okay.
I guess a lot of things bug me.
Yeah.
Millennials are lazy.
Huh. That's interesting.
Okay.
See, I wouldn't say we're lazy. I would say we just work smarter.
Yeah, smarter, not harder. Yeah. So I wrote down a couple stats. So only 30% of millennials see themselves as hardworking, and only 20% see themselves as responsible. So we're talking about people born between 1980 and 1996.
Yeah.
So people born in 1980 are now 40.
Yeah. And they don't see themselves as responsible.
Yes.
Wow. Interesting. I don't know. Do you see yourself as responsible?
I think I am.
Yeah. 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 I guess I am. I
And
mean,
like,
yeah. What were you gonna say?
and I'm like really like I'm proud of my work ethic. And like maybe not all people like have like view that as me, but
Yeah.
like I I'm proud of the fact that I view myself as a hard worker.
Mhm.
So like
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
the next one I do agree with.
Okay.
Millennials work to live rather than live to work. So I do agree with this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
100%. As we said, housing prices, cost of living.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm honestly, I only go to work because I have to go to work.
yeah.
Right?
Like I'm going to do something I enjoy.
Yes.
Um, but typically like,
Yeah.
all right. Millennials are compulsive job hoppers.
Hmm. See, and that was in the 7 problems, right? It's constant job change or unemployment. I wouldn't say I'm surprised by that. I think it's I think it's partially like I think another one in that list was work environment that I skipped over. But it's like being respected by the employer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being rewarded for your work. And if your work isn't valued, then why are you working there?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it might not be something that you or I might think of right now, but
Mm-hmm.
it is a valid reason, and especially like the creator circles, right? Like
Yeah.
the graphic designers or the photographers or the writers, or even just people who work in an office, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is a valid,
I will
especially.
say, sorry, I keep on cutting you off. I
That's okay.
apologize.
That's
I
okay.
will say, the last job that
Yeah.
I had an amazing supervisor who like took the time to validate you.
Hmm.
So I understand like where the creators like having that
Yeah.
um
And
it matters.
yeah, and it might not just be validation, it would just be like also compensation, right? Like again,
Yeah.
a lot of jobs are contract jobs nowadays
Hmm.
because the employers don't want to pay the benefits and they don't want to pay the vacation time. So,
Hmm.
I mean, if you're in a full-time job where maybe you're getting an hourly salary, but you're not getting any of those benefits, you're not feeling like you're appreciated for the work
Yeah.
that you do, right?
Very, very true.
Yeah.
And the last one is millennials have little time for experienced colleagues.
Sorry, say that again?
Millennials have little time for experienced colleagues.
So, like spending time with colleagues?
Just other things millennials value in the workplace are reverse or mentoring, the opportunity to teach skills to older colleagues as well as learn from them and spend time discussing new ways of working, mentoring, and developing leadership.
Huh. Interesting. I will say I enjoy connecting with the older folks that I work with. Interesting. So, what is like the hardest thing that you found of being like a millennial, especially like, I don't know, the past like year or two? What's kind of the like your I don't know what makes you like happy to be a millennial, but what also like you know challenges
Um,
you with being a millennial?
I think probably one of the tougher things, especially like when I was working, was being taken seriously.
Hmm.
That was difficult. Um, especially because I'm blonde, so people would like kind of make preconceptions.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, I enjoy being a millennial. Like
Hmm.
I think we have a good like view and outlook on life. Like I think as a millennial, I think we have more choices and I think
Hmm.
that's amazing. I think as a society, we've adapted and we're becoming more open to change.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I think we still have a ways to go, but I think we're doing awesome.
Yeah.
What about you?
I guess the best thing about being a millennial is just like the thing that I enjoy is just like my brain is always going.
Mm-hmm.
There's always like new ideas and thoughts in my head, and like, what if I did this? Or, what if I tried, making this? Or my mind is just always going. And I don't know. It's always going. It's like, will you please shut up? But yeah, so no, it definitely, like, the creative side of me is very much in tune with being a millennial. I would say the hardest thing is, again, that preconceived notion or that societal pressure of like conforming.
Mm-hmm.
I work supply, so I don't have like a specific set place that I go. I don't have a contract. I bounce around. It's the type see one type of nomadic lifestyle that I'm comfortable with. But often I'm asked, like, do you want full time? Like, are you going to apply to contracts? And every time I say, like, no, not right now, or like, I'm doing this or whatever, they're like, oh, like all these older ladies, they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, and I can sense like they're like, why? Like, why don't you just like settle down and take this, specific job, or you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
it's that generational gap in like understanding and thought.
Yeah.
And so that's where I get a lot of like judge I I don't want to say judgment, but judgment, both of myself, on like from myself in my head to my heart, but also from the judgment that I feel of others in that moment. So yeah.
No, I get what you mean. Like it's hard to right, it's hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah.
And like I know I'm in a different position, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like I don't even know how to explain it, but when I went back to work, like
Mm-hmm.
being like, gosh, my words are really bad today. Um, like just constantly worrying
yeah.
about what's best for Liam, and just I don't know, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Are you enough? Are you doing enough? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, like there's just for me as a millennial, I liked how you were going there. That's why I wanted to add on.
Yeah.
I guess for me as a millennial, it's ideal. I I don't want to conform because I get where you're going with your brain's constantly going. Like
Yeah.
mine's like that too.
Yeah.
And I like that. I
Mm-hmm.
do like that. Like
Yeah.
I like that aspect of being a millennial.
Yeah.
I like the fact that like it worked with me for what I did for work. Like I'm constantly going, and
Yeah.
I'm really good at that, and I can balance lots of things, and I'm a really great multitasker.
Mm-hmm.
But I also my family's very traditional,
Yeah.
and because I live a very not different lifestyle, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not married, and I do get a lot of flack for that. See, I said flack this time. And I just sometimes, right, when you don't conform to
yeah.
the societal norm,
Yeah. Yeah.
like even though you yourself are happy and you're good,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you still internalize some of that.
100%.
So,
Yeah. I feel like everybody can relate with that statement.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's more of just, you have to be happy with where you are on the inside, and
Yes.
just kind of just leave all that other stuff out because you know, be the best you can be.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and as millennials, we really had to learn how to like tune out, right, the rest of the noise and just be okay with people not being okay with how one might live their life, right?
Whether, and I think,
I
think that's something that, you know, I think, right, we've been millennials for 28 years, and it's only been the last couple years that I've been good. I don't even want to say the last couple years, maybe the last year, where I have been good at tuning out that noise.
No, I think I'm good at it, and then it like takes over and I'm like, what am I doing? Where am I going? And it's that constant self-comparison, right?
Yeah.
It's that constant get in your head and compare yourself to your peers that you went to school with who are, you know, God knows where, doing God knows what. But the funniest thing is I always have to remember this, is that, you know, things appear one way on the outside, right? So from me looking in, they appear one way. But they could be a completely different way for that specific person. And that person, you know, might have like a great job, they might own their house, but they might not also be happy.
That's really true.
Right? Like that is a frame of thought that I'm constantly challenging myself with, because I'm like, why am I, right? Why am I in this, you know, season of longing for whatever, or this phase of like, I don't want to call it jealousy, but let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. Sometimes we get jealous of other people and the places in which they are, right? And I think that's a normal thing for millennials, especially when we start comparing ourselves. But I'm constantly challenging myself, like, I'm happy, so why am I, when, you know, they could, it looks great, but it may not all be great.
No, I think we constantly need to be challenging ourselves, like, and just keeping ourselves on our toes, because it's, and the way you put that is right. It might be a big brick house, but what's really inside it?
Yeah. It could be a 3-alarm fire for all you know. But yeah.
And that is us as millennials.
Yeah. It's challenging. How would you characterize, if you could think of like 3 words to characterize being a millennial as, what would you like say?
I would say it's an adventure. It's, I want to say facade. And I don't know what else.
You have to have 3, Ashley. Come on.
I want to say challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, you stole one of mine. So I would characterize being a millennial as challenging, rewarding.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And just diabolically head spinning, because most of the time I don't even know how I got here.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
It is. It's crazy. Right, like every day you're like, I'm here. I'm taking deep breaths. I'm
I'm going to the woods.
Yeah. Like, you know, every day it's just like, I love my life, but yeah, I don't really know. It's just, and when I say like facade, it's more of just like, there's some people that like, I don't know if you're like this, but it's almost like a facade that I have to be around because I don't, I have to be careful how I act around them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. I experience that more if I'm amongst my peers that I went to school with. Right? It's going back to that self-comparison piece that we just talked about, right? So that's where I feel like I put up a facade because I have had different experiences and I'm in a much different place with different perspectives than most of my peers. And while that can be all well and good at times, and I wouldn't change that, it can also be challenging in that self-comparison realm, right? So, yeah.
Ah, damn personal growth.
I tell ya. Well, I think we covered some good stuff tonight.
Yes.
Yes. Did you have anything else to add on millennials?
I think I'm good. Cool. Guys, I hope we covered something that can, you know, help your understanding.
All right, guys. That is it for tonight. You can find us everywhere you get podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. If you go to Instagram, you can find us on Instagram at Saturday Night Convos, and you can just find everything there. You can follow us on Twitter at Convos Night. We're getting better at updating that. I promise. And if you have opinions on what you've heard tonight, or there is a specific topic that you want to chat about, you can email us at saturdaynightconvos@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe and also comment, because we would love your feedback on what we're doing so we can tailor it more to what you guys want to hear.
Awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and we hope you all have a fantastic night.